Adding 4 quarts of the system on my Duramax 3.0 with the PPE transmission oil pan. This thing towers over the factory unit. Before we do anything, let's make sure you have the proper way to fill this transmission, though. I use this Mobil Products Power Fill, and the reason is this hook right here is perfect for hooking into the side of the transmission, which is where you're going to fill it. And you're going to do that by either pumping this plunger right here, or you're going to fill from this side port with a little air hose. It's a must-have, absolute must-have. All right, so now I'm assuming you have a drain pan down below, and here's a visual of what the transmission pan looks like while you're underneath. So it's held on by 10mm bolts. They're all the same size, so there's nothing to worry about on mixing up bolts or anything. But let me give you a tip. If you have the ability to, and you have a suction device, you're going to want to pull off the side plug over here, and that's going to allow you to stick the suction device in, and then you can suck out the fluid. If you don't have the ability to do that, then follow along because we're about to get messy. So start pulling off all of the 10mm bolts. There's 16 total, but you're going to want to leave 2 in the rear, 2 in the front, preferably out by the corners. And the reason for that is because when you slowly lower the rear bolts, it's going to start to allow the fluid to come out. Then you're going to slowly lower some of the front bolts, and that's going to allow more of the fluid to come out, and it's mostly going to be from the rear, because that's how you started off the process. So then go ahead and take out the rear 2 bolts, and it's going to drip more and more. Let it drip some until you're able to lift it up by hand, and you're going to hold the pan up while you remove the front 2 bolts. And what's going to happen now is you have the pan in your hands with all the fluid in there, and you're going to need to slowly work this down without spilling it all over the place, and then just drain it out into your drain pan down below. Take your time. All right, once the pan is off, the trans filter is exposed. Now, I'm not doing the transmission filter replacement right now because I have such low miles, and I'm only going in here to replace the pan. But if you're doing this, you're going to need an inverted torque socket size E10, and it's going to take off the 2 bolts holding on to that transmission filter. The torque spec is 44 inch-pounds, then 128 degrees. These are one-time use bolts, so make sure you have new ones. All right, looking in the pan, you're going to definitely want to look for any kind of issues. So as you can see, the new pan towers over that factory pan. The internal baffles are there to keep the fluid from sloshing around. And this pan is machined perfectly to accept the factory reusable gasket and even includes the holes for the alignment tabs. The fluid used is Dexron ULV. Now I bought 12 because the deep pan adds 4 to the stock 8. Remember to shake the fluid before putting it in. Make sure your surface is absolutely spotless clean. You must use a lint-free towel only. In my case, I'm using a paper towel. Anything else would get fibers stuck in the solenoids, and that's just bad news that you do not want. So install the pan by lifting it up and then start to tighten the bolts, but you don't want to tighten them all the way down. You want to get all the bolts in, and then you want to torque them down to 8 to 10 foot-pounds, but there's a specific torque sequence shown here. And just for reference, here's the factory torque sequence to be set at 93 inch-pounds, which is roughly 8 foot-pounds. All right, it's time to remove the side plug so we can get to filling. Now, it is a very tight fit 8mm Allen or hex head. It's held on super tight by blue Loctite, so you really have to work this, but I got it off. And I got creative to remove it the full length because this drive shaft is in the way. If you cannot get it out because the drive shaft is in the way and you don't have the setup like this, feel free to unbolt the drive shaft and it'll give you a little bit more room to get this taken care of. So shake your fluid and fill the power fill up and then get the fluid into the transmission. You want to put in about 9 quarts, then start the truck and let it idle while filling in more fluid until it runs out the plug. Once the trans fluid reaches 167 to 176 degrees Fahrenheit, you can check for proper level. And at that temperature, it should just barely trickle out the hole. And once that is achieved, reinstall the plug and you are ready to clean this thing and go enjoy. Now, all products shown are linked down below. And be sure to check out the transmission cooler video next.